The spring of 2020 became a watershed moment in the history of corporate governance. As offices emptied and home kitchens transformed into workspaces, the world of leadership changed irrevocably. Traditional tools of a leader, a firm handshake, a piercing gaze across the negotiating table, spontaneous meetings at the whiteboard, suddenly lost their power. Computer screens became the new frontier of influence, and pixels replaced personal presence. Many experienced managers felt like novices in this digital reality. Charisma, honed over years in live communication, did not always translate into the online format. Leaders accustomed to controlling their team through physical presence found themselves powerless before the invisible barriers of remote work. Upon these ruins of old principles, a new paradigm began to form: digital leadership, requiring different qualities and approaches. Success came not to those who spoke loudest, but to those who listened best. Not to those who controlled most strictly, but to those who trusted most effectively. Virtual teams are a phenomenon that has experienced a real boom in recent years. Imagine a world map where glowing dots are connected by invisible threads of digital links. Each dot is a professional working from their corner of the planet, yet part of a single organism. Geographic distance, once considered an obstacle, is now becoming a competitive advantage. Companies gain access to talent regardless of their physical location, forming dream teams of specialists from different countries and continents. A CFO from Singapore, a designer from Barcelona, a programmer from Kiev. All can work on a single project in real time. The economic effect is also obvious. Reduced costs for office space, business trips, and workplace organization allow resources to be redirected towards development and innovation. But the main advantage of virtual teams is their unprecedented flexibility. They can quickly respond to market changes, scale according to project needs, and operate 24/7. However, this flexibility requires a special approach to management. A virtual leader must possess a unique set of skills that allow them to maintain the attention and engagement of people they may never meet in person. The key becomes the ability to build transparent communication protocols, create digital rituals and traditions that form team identity, and find a balance between control and trust. When we transition into virtual space, our brain encounters a paradoxical situation. We interact with living people, yet we are deprived of 90% of the signals that we have grown accustomed to relying on over millennia of evolution. The absence of physical presence creates a unique psychological matrix, where customary rules of social interaction cease to function. In digital space, we lose the ability to read micro-expressions, body language, subtle changes in intonation. This informational deprivation gives rise to a phenomenon that psychologists call digital isolation, a state of emotional detachment even amidst constant communication. Members of virtual teams often feel invisible, their contribution seems undervalued, and their connection with colleagues superficial. Research shows that the level of empathy in online communication decreases by 30% compared to in-person interaction. Virtual leaders face the necessity of compensating for this deficit by creating new channels of emotional connection. They must learn to read the digital footprints of the team's state, response times to messages, activity in chats, the tone of written communications. Successful leaders of virtual teams purposefully create moments of presence, periods of full attention and engagement during video calls when each participant feels heard. They develop digital rituals that replace physical contact. Virtual coffee breaks, online games, collaborative challenges. In this new reality, trust is not a result of intuitive feeling, but a product of consistent actions and transparent communications. Imagine a virtual meeting. You've just finished an important presentation, and silence descends. In a regular conference room, you would see nods, smiles, furrowed brows, dozens of non-verbal cues helping you understand the audience's reaction. But on the screen, there are only frozen squares with names and disabled cameras. This digital wall of silence is just one of many barriers virtual leaders face daily. Communication obstacles in the digital space are multi-layered and insidious. Technical glitches turn important meetings into a fragmented experience, where half of what is said is lost in echoes and interference. Time zone differences force some team members to stay awake until midnight, and others to wake up at dawn, creating unequal conditions for engagement and productivity. But the greatest loss for virtual teams is the disappearance of incidental interactions. Those 5 minutes by the coffee machine where unexpected ideas are born. Spontaneous exchanges in the hallway after a meeting. The energy of a collaborative brainstorming session where people complement each other's thoughts in real time. All these moments, invisibly binding teams together and fueling innovation, evaporate in the digital space. Cultural differences, almost imperceptible in face-to-face communication thanks to context and non-verbal cues, transform into sources of constant misunderstandings in a virtual environment. Directness, perceived by some as efficiency, is read by others as rudeness. Silence can mean agreement, contemplation, or complete misunderstanding, and the virtual leader has to become a detective, deciphering these digital hieroglyphs. In a world where personal presence is replaced by pixels on a screen, trust becomes the most fragile yet most valuable currency. Traditionally, it was built through handshakes, shared lunches, casual corridor conversations. All those moments when we see a person entirely, not just their digital projection. In a virtual environment, this natural chemistry of trust must be consciously recreated, which demands fundamentally new skills from leaders. Digital trust is built more slowly, but it can be deeper. When physical attributes of status and charisma recede into the background, authenticity comes to the fore. Successful virtual leaders transform screen limitations into opportunities, making communication more deliberate. They create space for vulnerability, sharing their challenges, admitting mistakes, telling personal stories. It is this willingness to be real in a digital environment that becomes a bridge for building deep professional connections. Microsignals in a virtual environment take on immense importance. The tone of voice in an audio message, the choice of emoji in a chat, punctuality in online meetings, the response time to emails. All these seemingly insignificant details combine to form the mosaic of digital trust. Masters of virtual leadership learn to read these signals and consciously use them to strengthen ties with their team. Interestingly, virtual trust often becomes more conscious and less intuitive. Instead of a vague feeling of a person's reliability that arises during a personal meeting, we get a clear picture of their actions, promises, and their fulfillment. Such trust, based on consistency and transparency, can turn out to be even stronger than traditional trust. The world of digital communications has created a new dimension of emotional intelligence: digital empathy. It is no longer enough for leaders to simply understand people's emotions. They must learn to read them through a monitor screen in the absence of 90% of non-verbal cues. The emotional temperature of a team is determined by subtle digital markers: changes in typing speed in chat, delays in responding to emails, micro-expressions during video calls. Experienced virtual leaders notice the first signs of burnout long before it becomes obvious, by a reduction in emojis in messages, a monotonous voice on calls, a decrease in initiative in group discussions. They create structured opportunities for emotional expression, virtual check-ins where everyone can share their state, anonymous surveys about team mood, digital walls for spontaneous thoughts and feelings. Active digital listening becomes a crucial skill, the ability to be fully present in an online conversation without being distracted by other screens and notifications. Leaders with developed digital empathy personalize their approach. For introverts, they create space for written expression of thoughts. For extroverts, they organize additional video meetings. They remember the time zones, cultural differences, and home circumstances of each team member. Digital empathy requires conscious effort and practice, but it is precisely what becomes the glue that holds virtual teams together and transforms a group of disparate specialists into a cohesive collective, capable of overcoming digital barriers. In the digital world, power takes on new forms. The status symbols of office life, the corner office, the designer's suit, the commanding posture, lose their meaning when all communication occurs through a computer screen. The architecture of influence is being rebuilt before our eyes, requiring leaders to rethink the very foundations of their authority. In a virtual environment, respect is earned not by the loudness of one's voice, but by the depth of one's expertise. The team doesn't see you enter the meeting room, but it clearly perceives the value of your ideas and the clarity of your communication. A digital leader is, first and foremost, a master of meaning, capable of crystallizing complex concepts into formulations understandable to all. Paradoxically, virtuality makes leadership more meritocratic. In the stream of video calls and text messages, authority must be proven every day with every action. One unsuccessful call, one careless presentation, and your influence can waver. Technical glitches transform from annoying hindrances into serious threats to leadership status. Successful digital leaders develop a special quality: virtual presence. This is the ability to fill the digital space with their energy, to create a sense of closeness even through a screen. They masterfully use all available channels of influence: the tone of voice in audio messages, the visual design of presentations, even the choice of background for video calls. The modern digital leader is a hybrid of a traditional executive and a technological visionary. Their profile is formed by a unique combination of skills, where classic leadership qualities are amplified by digital literacy and technological intuition. In a world where teams exist in cloud services rather than office buildings, success is determined by the ability to masterfully juggle various communication platforms, from video conferencing to messengers and task management systems. An effective virtual leader transforms into a multimedia director, creating engaging content for their audience. They know how to hold the team's attention amidst information overload when every team member is constantly distracted by dozens of notifications. Adaptability becomes not just a desirable, but a critically necessary quality. Digital tools and platforms change at a dizzying pace, and the leader must constantly master new technologies to remain effective. At the same time, they must possess strategic vision, understanding which innovations will truly improve team performance and which will merely create digital noise. The ability to experiment with new interaction formats acquires special value. Virtual quests, digital retreats, asynchronous brainstorming sessions. A successful leader is not afraid to try unconventional approaches to increase team productivity and cohesion. All the while, they maintain humanity in the digital environment, without turning into a soulless management algorithm. It is precisely this ability to combine technological efficiency with human warmth that makes a digital leader truly indispensable. In modern digital leadership, technology is no longer merely a tool. It has become a natural extension of the leader themselves. Just as a violin becomes an extension of the musician's hands, digital platforms expand a leader's influence, amplify their presence, and multiply their effectiveness. A skilled virtual leader doesn't just use available technologies, they create an entire ecosystem where every element reinforces their leadership vision. The choice of technological strategy today is as important as the choice of a team. A video conferencing platform, a project management system, an instant messenger for quick communications. All these solutions form the digital environment in which the team will exist. Experienced leaders carefully select tools not only for their functionality, but also for the culture they promote. Some platforms encourage hierarchy and control, while others foster collaboration and transparency. Wise leaders consciously build a technological landscape that reflects their values. Interestingly, the most successful virtual leaders do not become prisoners of technology. They actively shape it. They configure notifications to encourage a healthy work-life balance. They create digital rituals that strengthen team spirit. They transform monitoring systems from tools of control into means of support and development. In their hands, technology becomes not a cold mechanism, but a living fabric of team interaction, imbued with human values and meanings. Corporate culture is an invisible force that unites people through shared values and goals. In traditional offices, it manifests naturally, in shared jokes by the coffee machine, in the style of office decor, in unwritten rules of interaction. But what happens when the physical space disappears and the team exists only in the digital dimension? Virtual leaders face a unique challenge, the need to materialize the intangible. They have to transform abstract corporate values into concrete digital practices that the team can feel and experience daily. This requires a special creative approach and a deep understanding of the psychology of virtual interaction. Successful digital cultures begin with a reinterpretation of rituals. Morning check-ins become not just status reports, but an opportunity to strengthen human connections. Virtual celebrations of achievements, online ceremonies of recognition, digital honor boards. All this creates a sense of belonging to something greater than just a collection of remote employees. Informal communication norms acquire critical importance. Which emojis are appropriate in a work chat? How quickly is it customary to respond to messages? Is it acceptable to write late at night? These unwritten rules become the team's cultural code, defining boundaries and expectations. Wise virtual leaders consciously use every digital interaction as an opportunity to strengthen team identity. They become custodians and translators of culture, constantly reminding of values, not through dull declarations, but through success stories, recognition of behavior consistent with these values, and personal example. Becoming an effective virtual leader is a journey that requires a systematic approach and continuous practice. Start with an honest self-assessment. Evaluate your communication habits, technological literacy, and emotional intelligence in the digital environment. Create a personal development plan, focusing on specific skills that need improvement, be it conducting engaging online meetings or developing digital empathy. Regularly solicit feedback from your team through anonymous surveys or individual conversations to understand how your leadership style is perceived through the screen. Experiment with various virtual interaction formats, asynchronous discussions, short daily calls, written reports, to find the optimal balance for your team. Form your digital leadership brand, paying attention to the quality of your online presentations, the style of written communications, and the visual design of your presentations. Develop crisis management skills in a virtual environment. The ability to quickly mobilize a team, effectively coordinate actions, and maintain morale in conditions of uncertainty. Invest time in mastering new technologies and platforms that can enhance your virtual presence and influence. And remember the importance of balance. Create digital boundaries that protect personal time and prevent burnout, both your own and that of your team members. We stand on the threshold of a fundamentally new era of leadership. Virtual management is not a temporary measure caused by the pandemic, but a fundamental shift in the very paradigm of leadership. Just as the Industrial Revolution transformed the hierarchical structures of the 19th century, the digital era is changing the very essence of influence and power. Hybrid work models, combining physical and virtual presence, are becoming not the exception, but the rule for organizations worldwide. Tomorrow's leaders must learn to masterfully switch between different management modes, from in-person meetings with deep personal contact to virtual spaces where influence is built on entirely different foundations. This ability to switch contexts is becoming a key meta-competency for the modern leader. Technologies will continue to transform human interaction at an accelerating pace. Artificial intelligence, virtual reality, immersive environments. All these innovations will create new dimensions for the manifestation of leadership qualities. Those who can preserve the human essence of leadership, using technology not as a replacement, but as an amplification of their influence, will be successful. In this future, the most valuable resource will not be information or even attention, but the ability to create meaningful connections between people, regardless of the physical distance between them. Leaders capable of inspiring, guiding, and uniting teams across digital barriers will define the face of 21st-century organizations.